Hey everybody, Noma Lang. I'm Charlie Moses here with the mochamoguls.com. I'm here with Dr. John Beckem from personalfinanceblueprint.com. How are you doing today, Dr. Beckem?
I'm doing excellent. How you doing today, Noma?
I'm doing great. So, on our quest to answer America's questions, middle income America's questions, the everyday people like me who want their questions answered so they can get their personal finances in order. I have a really great question, and it's from somebody I actually see a lot on my page, and he wants to know how can one, these are his words, how can one safely reduce credit card and student loans to save more and invest more?
All right. So you're really hitting two different things. So I guess since he asked about credit cards first, I'll start off with credit cards. So if you're going to reduce credit card, you need to find some extra income, right? So that's the first thing. So go through, catalog, in other words, write down all your expenses for the month and try to find out where you can minimize an expense to find some extra income. Maybe you got to cut out your cable. So, that should be at least $50. So anyway, find out where you can get some income, $50, $100, and so forth. Next, you want to make a list of all of your credit card debt. So let's say you got 10 credit cards.
Wow.
So you want to make a list of them from the least amount owing to the greatest. So number one, if there's a credit card that only owes $200, I'm going to put that one. Credit card number two, I might owe $400, and you keep going up to your greatest outstanding debt on a credit card. Now, what I want to do is I want to take that money that I found, the extra $50, $100, and I want to add that to the number one credit card on that list. So the credit card that has the lowest outstanding balance. So if my monthly payment on that credit card is $50, and I found an additional $50, then I want to put $100 on that credit card a month until it's paid off. All right. So remember, it was initially $50. I found additional $50, so I paid $100 a month. Now, once I get that accomplished, my second credit card, let's say that credit card is costing me $100 a month, but I've already just found a way to get $100 extra. So $50 from what I found in reducing expenses, and I was already paying that one credit card $50 a month. Now that I have eliminated that debt, I still have that $50 that I was paying that credit card. So the 50 plus the 50 is 100. My payment on credit card number two is already $100. So now I want to add $200 a month onto that credit card. And you keep doing this process until you get all 10 credit cards paid off. That is the quickest and most efficient way to get credit card debt eliminated. I know some of other financial gurus, Susie Orman and all those different ones, they like to look at which credit card are you paying the greatest interest rate on, and you start with that. I don't buy into that method. I like to look at the ones you have the lowest outstanding debt. Because if you get that paid off, then you also have a sense of self-accomplishment. You feel good, right? I hit one of my goals. I went to having 10 credit cards that I was paying on. Now I only have 9. You get rid of that, now I only have 8. And it becomes this momentum that is sustainable.
Right.
The second question you asked was about student loans. So how can I reduce student loans?
Can I interrupt before we go to student loans and
Yes.
ask a question about, I think maybe this should be obvious, but I think it's worth saying. Credit card debt, if you have it and you're trying to pay it off, one of the things you might want to do is stop spending. Don't.
That goes without saying, right? Right.
It seems obvious, but I think it needs to be stated.
Yeah. So I should have said number one, or starting with level 0. Stop spending money on your credit card. Cut them up, put them in a drawer, lock them away, give it to somebody else. Whatever you got to do. Number one, just stop all spending on credit card, right? And you want to keep using freed up cash to now double down on the next card to get it paid off.
Right.
All right. And then we're going to use something with that income in my third step, or your third question. So now that we have a plan, a blueprint, a personal finance blueprint to eliminate this credit card debt, you want to implement it and stick to it. Number two, you asked about student loans. How can you reduce your student loan debt? Well, one of the greatest tools that you have is if your student loans are or you receive student loan monies from the federal government, then I would highly recommend that you consolidate all of your student loans into one student loan. And the federal government does have a student loan consolidation program. And let me sidestep. Student loan debt is probably the most dangerous debt there is to have. And why do I say that? Well, number one, if you look at bankruptcy laws, well, you can pretty much have everything dismissed in a bankruptcy if you file, except for your student loan debt. It's not admissible in a bankruptcy filing or bankruptcy judgment. You still will have it. Number two, student loan on a default, they can garnish everything. They can seize your banking accounts, garnish that money, apply it to your student loans. If you're getting a tax refund from any taxes, whether federal or state, they can garnish that and apply it to your student loans. They can garnish your paycheck. So here you are, work 40 hours, think you're going to have some money, and they leave you with $100 because they garnished the other, whatever the number might be, to go back to your student loans. There are approximately 7 million people who are currently retired. Their only source of income is a Social Security check. And their Social Security check, which is their only income, is being garnished for past student loan bills that they did not pay, so default. So they're, they will come after you, and there's really no alleviation once you have gotten to this default arena, unless you got some type of workout. So what I often recommend that people do, because over the course of getting your degree, whether it's bachelor's, master's, a combination of both, you might have several student loans. So you got one student loan when you're a freshman at one interest rate. You got another student loan when you're a sophomore. You got another one when you're a junior, senior, fifth year senior, sixth year senior, because they do exist, whatever. And those student loans have varying interest rates. So let's say you have one as low as 2, and the other one, your grade is at 4. And so part of this consolidation, what they do is they take an average, all right? So if you got 2 and you got 4, the average is going to be 3. So they would take all of your student loans and now put it at a 3% interest rate, which is an average. I use 3% as an example, but they're going to use whatever your average is. And now you have one student loan repayment that's been consolidated. So what you can do now is, since I'm talking to this one particular individual who had credit card debt and student loan debt, the money that you have taken in paying your credit cards off, so say if you was paying $1,000 a month total in all of your 10 credit cards, begin to apply that to your student loans. So you're going to make your minimum payment, which they're going to tell you what it is, then also apply that extra $1,000 if that's what you have freed up, as an example. And that also now will begin to quickly eradicate that student loan, because you're going to make your principal and interest, and then that second payment, you want to make it go to principal only. You might have to mark that on your check, or also if it has a check box if you're doing it electronically. It's no different than paying down a mortgage.
Right. Can I sidestep before you get to your third thing, because you have to address the...
Oh, that was the third thing.
Save more and invest. You're probably going to say a little bit about that.
Okay, yes.
So before you get to that third part in that sense, I just have a question which I think a lot of people at this point want to ask. Student loan, thank God I don't have student loans. But I could have had student loans had I not known, or at least had my parents not positioned me better. I would have had student loans. I wouldn't have known that they take over your life forever. They could do that. So if you now know that student loans can become this thing that never goes away, right? And we also now know, and the reason why I'm asking you is this: you're an educator. You're right now a tenured professor at a college or a university, right? You're a dad, you have 4 kids, and most people want their kids to get a college education, right? So this is all the information I'm building up on. But we also know that student loan debt is like a nightmare, okay? Assuming you're a regular dad who did not put down a gazillion bucks that's gonna pay for your kids out of pocket, right? Their college out of pocket. Would you now advise your kids to go to college knowing that Number one, they'll go to college and get this horrible debt, right? Number two, there's no guarantee that they'll get a degree that will even create an income that will keep them above water in terms of being able to sustain themselves and pay back this debt.
Uh-huh. So, a great question. Right before I get to that question, is one thing that I forgot to mention on the repayment of student loans. Along with the consolidation, there are also other repayment programs. So you have the income repayment base. So they look at how much income you make, and they give you a percentage, so you can select that option. You have other options where it becomes graduated. So you start off paying a little bit less, and then it gradually gets higher, which is another student loan repayment program, as well as they do have some student forgiveness programs. You know, if you're working for, a peace program, or if you're in education and you're working with adverse students, or in some of the rough areas of the country, there are some forgiveness programs. So those are some things you should look at. Now, going back to this question that you asked, Noma, how can I plan, or would I recommend my children to go to college, and how can I plan for it? Number one, you're talking to an individual who has 7 degrees. So obviously, I'm a proponent of education, right? Education does a number of things. It broadens your horizon. It gives you different perspectives. It helps you to research and formulate creative thoughts and articulate it very well. So it's more than just the ability to secure a job. Because of your education, it actually helps you develop and evolve as a human, right? Understand different aspects of society, whether you've been to that geographical location or country or not. So it gives you more tools to be able to communicate, create, as well as disseminate your ideals to individuals. So I'm a huge proponent of education. Is education for everyone? No, there are some individuals. There are some individuals who find education in a different means. So they're still being educated. They might not just be going to a comprehensive college or university, right? Mm-hmm. So you have skilled tradesmen who decide, hey, I want to be an electrician. I want to be a pipe fitter. I want to be a plumber. And so they go to a skilled trade school. You still have some apprenticeship programs of various different careers and jobs, which a lot of those start off as individuals that kind of morph into a business. So even though you're an electrician working for a union or a hall, you get into now I own my own business, or I own my own plumbing business. So there are different aspects of education. Some people decide they want to go to the military, and they learn the MOS job, military occupations, and to help perform those different jobs as that. So number one, I don't solicit one form of education. There are multiples. Right. Number two, so if we're looking at my children, my personal children, and my children going to school, I, for them, recommend that they start off with a community college. The community college is going to give them a solid education. You got to take your liberal arts anyway as part of most 4-year degrees, right? I recommend business, because no matter what field you go into, it could be medical, it could be a lawyer, it could be a nuclear physicist. You're going to work for a business. Or if you get promoted into management, you need to understand how to do budgets, personnel, human resources, marketing. Even if you don't do it yourself, you need to have some type of concept so the people that you're managing, you know what they're doing. Right. So even from a associate's degree in business, which covers your entry-level business courses, accounting, finance, and so forth, plus all your liberal arts, gives you a leg up. And here's the leg up that it gives you. Number one, tuition rates are usually much inexpensive as a 4-year university when it comes to paying tuition. So you're able to pay less money for tuition. You may be also able to stay at home while you go to school, or stay with a sibling, or either get some roommates to save down on costs, because you don't have to live in a dormitory, and you don't have to buy the dormitory food in the cafeteria, which is very expensive. Number two, when you get ready to transfer to a 4-year institution, if that's what you decide to do after beyond your associate's degree, now you're going to a 4-year institution as a transfer student and not an entering freshman. So you don't have to worry about ACTs and SATs. Here you are, an individual who has an associate degree in hand, and I'm transferring to a four-year institution. And hopefully you have a high GPA so that, you know, there are other scholarships and funding available to you. Number three, I'm giving my children a grant to go to school. So what does that mean? I grant you the work while you go to school. So I grant them the ability, you know, to not just say, hey, I'm gonna go to school, so therefore I'm doing nothing else. No, you can work a job and you can go to school. Life is all about multitasking and being able to prioritize your life. It creates a stakeholder. You're now invested in your own education. So there's a combination of working and paying as you go. So I would highly recommend that a person does not go out and get into a lot of student loan debt to pay for school. You know, you work, you pay for your current semester or term, and you keep doing that. I'm paying for my classes as I go along. It's going to just put you ahead of the curve. I don't know if everyone knows this, but your student loan, if you have student loan debt, it is actually calculated in your debt to income ratio. So if you go to get a house, or, you know, when they look and say, well, how much house can you afford? Well, your student loan is also taken to that calculation. So if you're therefore paying $1,000 or whatever the number might be towards your student loan, that reduces the amount of house you can qualify for, if you can even qualify for a home. There are a lot of individuals who have good jobs who cannot afford a home because of their student loan debt. And so I highly recommend that you look at other alternatives and avenues. Community college, a great way to start, is usually local, in your local area where you live at. You got to complete your liberal arts anyway for a degree, so why do it at a high tuition rate? We do it at a reduced tuition rate. Also, work as you put yourself to school. I did it. You know, I'm not saying that you have to go and work 50, 60 hours like I did on the manufacturing line, you know, working for the auto workers, but you can find something enough to pay for your tuition, you know. Also start early. As soon as that your child is able to start working, have them work in, you know, summers or whatever the case might be, and put money aside for their school. There's such things called the 529 plan, where a person can invest, and it can be invested in the market, you know, S&P 500 index fund, I recommend, and it can grow. And now they can take, when they get ready to go to college, they can take that money out to pay for their schools. So there's a lot of alternatives other than just saying I'm gonna rack up a lot of debt and student loans. Look for scholarships, you know. I give personally to an institution for a scholarship. I give out a scholarship twice a year. So look for individuals who give out scholarships. Look for organizations that support scholarships. Maybe it's a church. Maybe it's your father's or mother's fraternity or organization that they belong to. But look, make the determination, I'm not taking out a student loan debt. And it will force you to look for other ways to finance your education.
Absolutely. Great. Yeah. I'm glad we answered that question, because I think that personally, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't go to college unless I could pay for it. I just don't want the debt, especially knowing what I know now about it. But on to the third part of the question, the original question, because it was, you know, how can I safely reduce credit card and student loans, right? And you answered that part. And then the second part was so that I can save more and invest. And I just, you know, wanted you to touch on saving and investing.
All right, so it's a perpetual thing. Number one, I believe that every amount of money you make, there's a certain portion that you should keep, right? So the first person you should pay yourself is yourself. When you look at your paycheck, you might say, hey, I'm going to take 10% out for myself, period. No matter what, I'm putting this away in savings for whatever the case might be. So I definitely believe in that. Number two, for this individual that I'm answering the question for, once you have reduced your credit card debt and you have reduced or eliminated your student loan, I should say eliminated your credit card debt, eliminated your student loan, now you have some freed up cash for investment. You know, it's going to be kind of burdensome to try to pay off credit card debt, pay off student loan debt, and invest and save. So you need to be focused. I will make it a perpetual thing. I'm going to do one thing first, pay off all my credit cards. Take that money that I was paying in credit cards, add it to my student loans. I'm going to pay off all my student loans. Now, with the money that I was spending in credit card and student loan, if it's 1,000, if it's 2,000, now I have all of that extra income that I was once going to debt that I now can use for investments. So I would be very focused and targeted, and I would make it sequential, right? I wouldn't try to do them all at one time. Always save money. So you always want to put aside something for yourself, for your family. That should be number one.
Being a student of yours, I do know that one of the things that you recommend is an emergency fund, which you start to build first before you go into other things. So when you say saving, and I know in other segments you've said saving is actually not a good strategy if you're trying to build wealth, but that doesn't include the emergency fund, which of course is for emergencies. But before we finish this, I just want to point out, because I've heard you say repeatedly that it's very, very important to note that we're getting a lot of good information here because we're talking to an expert. And by expert, I mean Dr. Beckem, not me, at least not where personal finance is concerned. The major thing here is your behavior, which you said is about 80%, right? And then knowledge is about 20%. So we're getting the full 20% here. But I just always want to go back to the main thing, which is he talked about focusing on one thing, getting it done, and then moving on to the next thing. So you need a high level of focus and a high level of discipline. Otherwise, you just won't get it done, even if you have the information and he's telling you what to do. So the focus and the discipline are part of it. So the last thing that I want to touch on is for people who have these real situations. I said that I'm lucky that I never got into student loan debt. But there are people who it's a mountain they can't seem to get out. They don't see the way out of. And I heard you say that it's better to focus on this and get this done before you ever think about saving and investing. You still kind of give that recommendation if the debt is so big that it's going to take forever to get out from?
Well, yes. I mean, you always want to save because you always want to have an emergency fund, right? So you always got some type of emergency fund. I recommend 8 months of your gross pay as an emergency fund. If you become unemployed, you got at least 8 months that you can survive. Or if a spouse get hit by a bus and you get other fees or debts or whatever to pay off, you have that. It's always good. And when I say putting your money in a savings account, I'm talking about don't put money in a savings account for a long-term investment, right? Use your savings account to hold my emergency fund because I need it readily available if I need it, right? You can't be in a CD, certificate of deposit. You can't be locked up in some bonds because I can't touch it without any penalty. Right. So I want to hold 8 months of gross pay in a savings account, more or less like a money market because it's going to give me a better interest rate, but it's liquid. I can get access to it.
Right.
The other reason why I say you don't want to do your investments and paying off your student loan at the same time because you're working against yourself, right? So your student loans, you're paying an interest rate on it. And so the interest rate that you might be paying, let's just say it's 4%. So what percentage are you making on your investments? If you're not making at least 4%, you're really working negatively. But there's a thing called velocity of money. So instead of the money that I'm putting away my investments, if I could hurry up and put it on my student loans to reduce it and eliminate it at a much faster pace, then all of that money that I was paying on my student loans, both the minimum as well as the extra I was putting it, now I can put it towards investment once that's done and over with. So again, I focus on focus. And some people say, well, it's insurmountable, and I say, well, you got to take the elephant approach. How do you eat an elephant? If I think about eating an elephant, if I look at the big elephant, it's insurmountable, right? But if I begin to break it down into one bite at a time, after a while, I'm making progress. And, you'll start to see that $100,000 reduced to $80,000, is reduced to $60,000. And then all of a sudden life happens, right? So you might get a bonus from work, or you might get some unexpected income. And I take that and I put it all on my student loan that I'm repaying. And it's like gasoline. It's like adding gasoline to a fire. And so once you make a determination that this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to be focused. I might not go out to eat with my buddies every day anymore, right? I'm going to the grocery store, I'm buying groceries, and we're going to cook. Why? Because we're focused at a task. There's a lot of people who like new cars every 2-3 years. So, okay, I'm going to hold my car for 6 years now. Why? Because I'm focused at this task. We're not going to Disney World this year. We're going to go right down the street, and, we might do something small just so we can do something as a family. We might go to the movies. We might go to a carousel. But I ain't spending thousands of dollars because that's money I'm adding to my student loan. Right. And you will see this perpetual and this velocity and this momentum begin to kick up. And sooner or later, it's gone. And everything that you thought that you missed, now I got the cash to turn around and buy it.
Right.
So you can't let instant gratification be to the detriment of long-term success. Okay.
So focus on what you're going to do long-term versus what you're going to do short-term. Yeah.
Yes.
So, so the original question was how you can safely reduce credit card debt and student loans. So basically, it's the same approach.
Absolutely.
Focus on it, get it done, put everything that you can into it until you have it out of the way. And then
right. And you want to start with one debt at a time, then, second debt, and you take everything that you was paying on this one debt, put on a second debt, you get that second debt paid, take everything that's paying on that, put on a third debt. And then once you get all of that debt, credit card paid off, now I can take that whole amount of money and just say it's $1,000, and I can add an extra $1,000 to my student loans. Because in this process, you was making all your minimum payments, right? So you don't stop making payments. You're making minimum payments to all of them. But now I get to accelerate the debt elimination by adding, more money to my minimum balance or minimum payment that I was once making.
Right. And I mean, at this point, really, we're talking about people who have some level of discipline.
Yeah, because the danger is, and this is what I see happens a lot of time, a person eliminate this credit card debt, and then they get excited and they go get right back into debt. Now this credit card has a zero balance. They go on a shopping spree, right. or they go out and get debt consolidation loans, which is one of the worst loans you can get. Right. It marks up your credit, and we talk about FICO score later on. That's another interview or another video where I'm gonna break down FICO scores and what is in it, how do you improve it, and how are different things calculated. But once you see debt consolidation and goes to your credit report, it's actually a ding against you. And so people use debt consolidation, they pay off everything, then they go back into debt. Well, now you got to pay back your debt consolidation loan, and you got to pay back all the credit cards that was paid off that you're now back into debt. So you actually double, if not triple, the amount of debt you have out there outstanding.
Right. And going back to the beginning of the video, one of the things that you said was the person has to be willing to forego some things.
Absolutely.
So I guess what I'm looking at is, you have a lot of people. I watched another segment that you did for a different audience where you talked about how a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, Mm-hmm. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not even in this conversation, First you have to get yourself off of that pattern. A pattern where you have anything left to then start to work on your debt and so forth.
Well, even a person living paycheck to paycheck, you got to be creative. What can you eliminate that's not a need, right? So your life should be broken down into needs, wants, desires. I need food. Mm-hmm. I might want a steak. Mm-hmm. I desire, filet mignon and lobster, right? I mean, so that's need, wants, desire. Right. You need transportation. You want a car, you desire a Bentley, right? So I want to go back to, if you live in paycheck to paycheck, go back to this, I'm sufficing in all my needs, right? I'm making sure all my needs are met. We have food. It might not be a steak or filet mignon, but we have food. I might be catching a bus, using Uber or taxi cab or bumming a ride from a family friend, but I got transportation. It might not be my own car. It might not be a new car, Lexus, whatever, but I'm doing this for a period of time or a season to eliminate, right? I don't have to have cable. So you eliminate cable. You don't have to go to Starbucks and get coffee. You don't have to smoke all these cigarettes. So what things can I eliminate in order to have extra income, right? So I got to move from paycheck to paycheck. So I get $100 in, $100 go out. So I got to see how can I get $100 in and 95 go out, and I can use the extra $5 to put on something else to eliminate it.
Right.
And you begin this cycle of debt reduction.
Right. I thought that was important to bring up because you have a lot of people who really are maxed out and they don't see how to not.
Absolutely. And another thing, sell something. I'm quite sure if you go throughout your house, there are things that you might have not used in a year. Start to have a sale, garage sale. Start selling so many things that your children think you're going to sell them next, right? and so as you sell all these different things that are wants and desires, now I can take that whole entire money that I brought out and I can put it on these debts that are outstanding.
Right. And again, going back to the original thing that you said, is one of the things that benefits you when you do this is you start to feel good about your progress or your small accomplishment that you're making headway on that. And because I get a lot of people sometimes when you talk about success at one level, they're at such a low level that they can't even hear you.
Right. Psychological rewards, right? Everybody feels good when they see that basketball go through the hoop for the first time,
Right.
And you keep practicing and practicing to it actually become just routine, and it's the same thing. If you got 10 things that's outstanding, start with the smallest one first, eliminate it. There's a success that build. Wow, I thought this was insurmountable, but I did it. And it's a sense of accomplishment.
Right. So this is just one of many questions that we've been getting, and we'll be, not we, Dr. Beckem will be answering your questions. I'll be facilitating that. And again, I always get a front row seat to the lecture or to the information. If you would like more information, you can go to drjohnbeckem.com, drjohnbeckem.com, and you can also go to personalfinanceblueprint.com. And also Dr. John Beckem is the founder of the Personal Finance Institute, where you will get basically a personal finance university or college or something that will take you from basically wanting to get your personal finances in order to a place where you're actually implementing information that is coming firsthand from Dr. Beckem. So again, that's drjohnbeckem.com and personalfinanceblueprint.com. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get information about the courses at the Institute. So thank you guys for listening. Always want to say thank you to Dr. John Beckem for the information. I appreciate you and your time. And we'll have more coming.
All right. Have a nice day.
Thank you, guys.